Up next on VIC, noon to 1, it's the place to be. Talking sports with the MVPs, that's Miller, Vicari and Passante. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, whatever you need. The MVP show where you need to be. Sports radio on VIC, that's MVP. Sundays on VIC, that's MVP. Sports Talk Radio, VIC.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the MVP show for May 9th, 2021. I'm John Vicari, joined alongside by Brennan Miller and Dan Passante. And, boys, we've known we've had a good show for this entire semester, really 2 semesters in total, and we've talked a lot of sports, and that's what we'll do for this next hour on YouTube and on VIC Radio. But, and not to be too cocky about this, we got some recognition this week. Right there, if you could read it probably backwards in terms of the camera. Best sports talk show on pretty much VIC and Ithaca programming, the MVP show. We can't call ourselves repeat champions because of, we sort of can, but last year it was Sports Talk, which is the flagship show which covers Ithaca sports. But in terms of sports talk show specifically on VIC, it was when we were back with Nick in our freshman year in 2019, and now the best sports talk show, the MVP show for 2021.
Yeah, and this year we kick Sports Talk's ass.
Yeah, thanks. It's a backhanded compliment. But, believe me, I was more happy that this won than Sports Talk. I mean, it would have been a win for me regardless, but, I'm very happy.
Really, isn't it at the point where, like, any show, I mean, you essentially win since you're sports director.
I guess. I made the decision to put them on air. I guess. Yeah.
I mean, I would take credit for it. Absolutely.
Yeah. In terms of individual awards, Dan won the Best New DJ. Probably should have won Best DJ overall as well, but Best New DJ because he's new on WICB and, again, his talk sets are magical. It sounds like professional radio if you're ever in the Ithaca area. But Dan, want to comment on your award-winning rookie season there?
I mean, I don't know what else there is to say. I appreciate the Just Desserts committee coming together and giving me something such as that plaque. And we got the other one too. We got one for this show, so it's been a good week.
Yeah, absolutely. So award-winning, wanted to get that out of the way, not seem too cocky, but we it's
an
because
MVP
of
type week, did you say
What was
an MVP type week?
It was. MVP type week, all around in multiple facets, but definitely happy that we got some recognition and all the shows, by the way, and this is being serious, all the shows throughout the semester, and if you come back next semester on the station, people putting a lot of time into these shows specifically on VIC Radio, and we do as well, so it's great to get some recognition regarding that. Segue, it's I had it in my mind, but I had to say it to be so obvious, but it's tough when you don't get recognition for the thing you've done, and it's even worse when you get fired and released when you thought you were doing a good job. And that's the situation that's in Madison Square Garden for this past week and what has been just a whirlwind of a week for the New York Rangers organization. We'll start on Monday. It was a Rangers versus Capitals game, a 6-3 Washington Capitals victory, but won't be remembered for that. It'll be remembered for a scuffle in the crease, I should say. And it was between Tom Wilson and Pavel Buchnevich. Artemi Panarin, the star of the New York Rangers, came in, and after having his helmet knocked off, Tom Wilson threw him to the ice. Panarin's head almost made contact with the ice, and he was brought down, and then Wilson went on top of him. And it was pretty much a gutless act from Tom Wilson all around. Wilson's a guy who's known around the league as being a dirty player and someone who tries to get under players' skins on the other team. But the difference is, a guy like Tom Wilson usually backs down or isn't as engaged when the team has a guy who can go toe-to-toe with him, but targets the star players when they're in vulnerable positions. He did the same with Artemi Panarin and the Rangers, and the Rangers had enough. After that game, which they obviously were severely beat up, and Panarin at the time left the game, and then it was later announced the following day that he would not play for the rest of the season, which obviously ended yesterday, so not a huge timetable. but no reason to risk your star player for next season and the future early on or going on. And then you go to Tuesday, and the Rangers release a statement, and it calls out George Parros, who's the NHL head of safety, as well as Tom Wilson, and the fact that Wilson, that next day, only got fined about $5,000 for what he did and suspended for no games for the regular season or the eventual playoffs that the Washington Capitals will be in. And obviously ruffled some feathers amongst people in the Rangers organization, where they released a statement that was very strong worded. And this isn't what I'm about to say, not saying that the Rangers don't take stands, because they do, but when that press release was issued on Tuesday, it definitely was strong worded and more so than usually regarding issues around the league that the Rangers and other teams usually comment on, but that the Rangers comment on. They were very, very direct in what they wanted to happen, and the league responded later in the week with a $250,000 fine of the New York Rangers that they will have to pay. That shifts us into our next point, because the man who has to pay that is James Dolan. Dolan, on Wednesday, made the decision to fire the president and general manager of the Rangers, John Davidson, and Jeff Gorton. And that came out of nowhere. I was in class, actually, when I got that news, and I have Twitter notifications on for certain people. Not for Larry Brooks, by the way, who broke the news, but someone tweeted about, Larry Brooks just broke this news. I had to read it about 4 or 5 times because I couldn't believe that this was happening. My mind instantly went to the fact that maybe it was just a lot of upheaval recently with Tom Wilson stuff and the fine, and James Dolan was pissed that he had to pay a fine because the Rangers overall as a team aren't built to be, very aggressive, and he took that out on the people who made the team in terms of John Davidson and Jeff Gorton. But it pretty much was, as the weeks or the days, I should say, have gone on, it looks like a move that Dolan would have made regardless, which is the confusing part, because the Rangers would be a playoff team, aren't a playoff team this season, but would be a playoff team if they were in any other division besides the East this season. And obviously it was a realignment of the divisions with the East and North and things like that, where a team like the Carolina Hurricanes won the Central Division, but usually are in the Metropolitan with the New York Rangers. But regardless of all that, James Dolan split with John Davidson, who he deemed a year ago or 2 years ago when he was hired, almost 2 years to the date, by the way, in which John Davidson was announced at MSG. He split with him, even though the Rangers released a statement a couple years ago that it was a rebuild on the fly and this was what was put in place, and the fans were all for it. They saw John Davidson build a winning team in Columbus and in St. Louis. And Jeff Gorton has been in the organization for a while and was a part of the 2014-15 teams that went to the Eastern Conference Final, 2014 team obviously to the Cup as well. So this was just confusion all around if you're the New York Rangers. James Dolan tried to, amend some of that confusion, and he sat down with Larry Brooks in the New York Post, and it's a great article if you have a time to read it. Just going to summarize it here, but it was about Dolan just pretty much reiterating that this was about the team's performance, they were lower expectations, and that he believes that this team right now has Stanley Cup talent, but they're missing a certain X factor in terms of physicality that make them a more well-rounded team. He believes that Chris Drury, who is now, by the way, both the president and general manager of the New York Rangers, he believes in Chris Drury immensely, compared him to Brian Cashman of the New York Yankees in that article, and saying that they're similar minds and they're going to build a winner for the years to come. And then Glenn Sather, who I mistakenly said for Jeff Gorton earlier, but Glenn Sather was an advisor and former GM of the Rangers, still in the organization, and his opinion will still be valued as well, at least is what Dolan said. He trusts him and called him the godfather of the New York Rangers. All of this said, if you're a Ranger fan, you are pissed. You're pissed because you believe, you do believe in the roster that you have. You just do. It is a great team, top to bottom. Not a playoff team this year, but you have the young studs in Capo Caco, Alexis Lafreniere, and Igor Shesterkin that you know are going to be the future. The presence there, yeah, absolutely. And I was going to get to that. And Fox is a Norris Trophy winner. You have Panarin and Kreider and Sabanjad, who are right now it. They are great players. Obviously, there's the depth defensively that they, sort of the back end that they have to clean up a bit. And Igor's got to play like a franchise goalie. But he's young. So that's expected. But to throw away the people who made this team, and especially John Davidson, and this is no rip on Jeff Gorton because obviously he's been in the organization a while as well and is well respected, well regarded. But John Davidson, longtime MSG broadcaster, a Hockey Hall of Famer in terms of broadcasting solely as well. And to discard of him like this just rubbed a lot of Ranger fans the wrong way, rubbed me the wrong way. And Brennan, I know because obviously I saw your reaction a couple hours after it broke. This was shocking, and it's definitely been not even just a week, but quite a season for the New York Rangers.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you take a look at everything that's happened this year. At the beginning of the season, we were talking about the release of Henrik Lundqvist and that whole saga. And now here we are at the end of the year talking about line brawls and firings of general managers and Tom Wilson and $250,000 fines. Which really, they're paying Jack Johnson $1 million to be hurt and sit on the bench, so $250,000 fine really isn't that big of a deal, especially for a team based in New York. So that I'm not really overly concerned about. I am a little upset by the fact that Tom Wilson fans will now have that to dangle over Ranger fans' head for the rest of eternity. The fact that Tom Wilson literally cost the Rangers $250,000. But I'm not really going to speak on the firings and stuff like that, just because it's so complicated and it's so confusing that I really just don't think it's worth it to try and like break it down and be like, this is why. Like, no, it just doesn't make sense. And like one of our roommates was talking to us and he was like, yeah, this is one of the 2 times a year that Dolan remembers that he owns the New York Rangers as well. It's like, yeah, like the Rangers have been doing fine essentially on their own. They have hockey people in hockey positions, and that means that they know what they're doing. And now all of a sudden we're just going to change that up because a team that wasn't supposed to make the playoffs this year and would have made the playoffs in any other division didn't make the playoffs. It doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. The Rangers, while they weren't in real contention for a playoff spot, there was a good chance of them to make the playoffs up until about 2 games ago. I don't understand why we're all of a sudden blowing it up. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, if we want to bring back Sean Avery, he released a video on his opinion on the Wilson incident, and I mean, it sounds like he's ready to play if need be. But I guess it just doesn't make a ton of sense what the game plan is as far as who is being brought in and who is being released from the front office. We're a rebuilding team. We have been a rebuilding team for at least 3 or 4 years. So I don't understand why all of a sudden the Rangers have to be this cup contender. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think the confusion comes from the fact that Dolan brought these people in. It's not like, and as you mentioned, it seems like Dolan is more invested in the Knicks, and I think it's just because of the last decade the Knicks have been bad and the Rangers have been, a consummate team in the playoffs and a playoff contender, obviously the last 2 years. Well, no, last year they went, but the 2 years before that, obviously a different story. So, but these are the people that he brought in. He wanted John Davidson because John Davidson wanted to build the Rangers the same way, as I mentioned, he built St. Louis and he built Columbus up. So it's crazy that, again, that they're both out the door. John Davidson released a statement via the Montag Group, which is his agency, and it was pretty much about his time as a Ranger, as a broadcaster, and being a part of this community. And it's sad that he has to go, and pretty much like that. And it really plays at the heartstrings in a way, because John Davidson was when they made the hire, I was excited for it. I was like, hey, someone who was a Ranger is going to build this team. Now the new guy is Chris Drury. And Chris Drury, maybe not remembered as fondly as John Davidson in Rangers lore, but was a New York Ranger. And I want to definitely, because obviously I think a lot of people are just like, oh, Chris Drury, he was a player, this and that. He has worked to get into this position. He's not someone who is just a star player that they made the GM. He has gone through the usual, I guess, rigmarole and process of being a general manager, and has,
Very impressive.
Thank you with the word choice. Thank you. Yeah. So he has and he hasn't treated it like that. He hasn't, discarded. He's worked each position. He was behind the bench in this season with the whole fiasco with COVID, with the coaching staffs. It's been quite a season. But Drury has definitely earned this position. Doesn't mean that we Ranger fans are happy that he has it now. Maybe as an eventual replacement a couple years down the line, but he does deserve a position like this in the NHL. Now, balancing both the president of a team and the general manager is going to be tricky. Hopefully, he is up for the task. Dolan said in the New York Post that he hopes Drury's here for the next 20 to 30 years, something along those lines in terms of just longevity. And obviously, it's Dolan's decision whether he is or not in the end game. So, definitely something very funny to say. But it has been quite a week for the New York Rangers. And overall, Brennan, we should be looking at this season, regardless of everything that happened, even if you go to the Tony DeAngelo situation and the with Georgiev, it's just been quite a whirlwind. And the fact that they were close to being a playoff team is something that should be celebrated. But obviously, the end of the season, a bad taste left in the Ranger fans' mouths. And, there's nothing much you could say going on because, again, as you mentioned, Brennan, we don't want to speculate in terms of, why this decision was made. Dolan stated why. Other people have theories, but the decision was made.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
To anyone, it's confusing to anyone outside of the organization itself. I liken it to what happened earlier this week, where the Mets for some reason all sprinted down into the clubhouse, and then they were like, "Oh, we were trying to decide whether it was a rat or a raccoon." It's like, yeah, man. Clearly, that's not what was happening. Do you think that the fans are dumb? That's kind of what I liken it to, where the only people that actually know what's going on are the people that are directly involved in it, and the information is not going to get out to a ton of people.
No. And obviously, again, the Rangers definitely have a team worth being invested in the future, but the people who built that are out the door, and we'll see how the roster is constructed, whether Quinn will come back as the head coach. That is something that's up in the air as well. I think he will. I think Drury likes him. That's just my, again, speculating in what I've read, but will be, something to look into as well, because it's been what Ranger fans have been discussing. They don't think that he's properly developing the young talent, which was one of the reasons that he was brought to New York, and we could have a whole conversation about that, but as of right now, Quinn's still the head coach of the New York Rangers, and their season over. Would be a playoff team in any other division, Brennan, but of course have to reconstruct with COVID, and we're in the East. And one final thing, by the way, because we talked about this pre-production. Right now, the 4 teams in the playoffs for the East are the Islanders, the Bruins, the Penguins, and the Capitals. You don't want to root for any of them, but the Penguins are in first, and right now, if you were to, and I know this might be controversial, if there were a team that had to come out of the East and represent, to come out of the East and make the Stanley Cup, I'd want it to be Pittsburgh, as crazy as that sounds. Capitals, obviously, Tom Wilson, you don't want to see that. Don't want to see the Islanders make a cup, especially last year going to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I just don't like Boston in general. So, and I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I'm just not going to pick a team.
Okay, you could do that. Eventually, it's going to happen.
The Carolina Hurricanes, that's who I want.
Oh, great. Yeah, and Jesper Fast, awesome. All right, well, that is quite an opening segment. We're going to get Dan involved because obviously hockey, not his forte, but we're going to talk a little basketball. We're going to talk the...
No, shut up.
Yeah. I just keep talking, even though I know none about any of it. But yeah, I just keep talking. In terms of when we come back, we'll talk about the Knicks and a realistic expectation for them in the postseason, which is pretty crazy to say that expectations of the postseason, but that's where we are with the Knicks. Usually the other team, usually the Rangers, but it is the Knicks in the Garden that will be playing in the summertime. And we'll talk on a lot of other things in sports as well, so stay with us. You're listening on VIC Radio, and you're watching on YouTube to the MVP Show.
VIC Radio is the voice of Ithaca College. Here's a campus organization you can get involved in.
Want to help bring a little more love to your campus community? IC Random Acts of Kindness Club meets every Monday from 8 to 9 p.m. in the Business School, Room 104. Stop by to socialize, participate in fun events, get creative, and be kind. For more information, please email randomactsofkindnessic@gmail.com.
Want to get your organization's message on the air? Email community@vicradio.org to connect with the Campus Community Involvement Director.
Up next on VIC, noon to 1, it's the place to be. Talking sports with the MVPs, that's Miller, Vicari, and Passante. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, whatever you need. The MVP show where you need to be. Sports radio on VIC, that's MVP. Sundays on VIC, that's MVP. Sports Talk Radio, VIC.
Welcome back to the MVP show here on YouTube and as well on VIC Radio for the last time in this semester, unfortunately. But hey, we're going to finish strong. And we just talked about the New York Rangers, who didn't finish their season strong in terms of decisions that were made. But a team that will be making the postseason that plays in Madison Square Garden are the New York Knicks. Believe it or not, with pretty much the same team as last year, added, of course, Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quickley, the New York Knicks have a winning record and are currently, as of this recording, recorded the day before it airs, the Knicks are in 4th in the Eastern Conference. As amazing that is to say, because the Knicks are coming into the season, and at least I'll call out this media organization because I saw it earlier this week. Bleacher Report had them as the worst team in the Eastern Conference finishing for this season. But no, the Knicks are 4th, still have not clinched a playoff spot as of right now. The first top 3 teams in the East have the 76ers, Milwaukee, and Brooklyn. But the Knicks currently stand in 4th. They could easily drop, not out of the playoffs, but could drop in terms of the standings because you have Atlanta in 5th, Miami in 6th, and Boston in 7th. And Boston is 3 games back. So in terms of the games that are remaining, there are 5 games remaining. If the Knicks don't finish out strong, they could easily find themselves in 7th, maybe 8th. And you do not want to be in those playing games if you're the Knicks. But as of right now, in the way it's probably going to go, won't have to deal with that and will be in the normal playoffs. And normal meaning, I guess, traditional and not this year because of, the playing game scenario. Depending on the seed, it'll be interesting to see if the Knicks can win a playoff series because that's what we're here for. The expectations have shifted all season. It went from, wow, the Knicks are winning. This is unbelievable. They might actually, win more games than last year. Then it was, wow, the Knicks may sneak into the playoffs. And now the expectation is not only for the Knicks to make the playoffs, but to at least win a playoff series. We're not going to talk out of our and talk about how the Knicks may have a shot at the NBA Finals because they don't. The team in New York that does are the Brooklyn Nets. But this Knicks season has been tremendous. You could tell that coaching makes a difference in the NBA, and Tom Thibodeau, they're a defensively minded team. They play harder than they did last year. It's just evident in terms if you watch or listen to a New York Knicks game, and they should be respected for it. But the question is, Dan, looking at the Eastern Conference, and as I mentioned, Atlanta in 5, Miami 6th, Boston in 7th, and this could easily shift, and the top 3 teams as well. Depending on the matchup, is there a series that you favor the Knicks in? Do they have a realistic chance of winning a playoff series in this upcoming playoffs?
Well, I think if the Knicks play the Hawks, I think it's probably going to be their best chance. Even though the Celtics are having a down year, I think that Boston matches up really well with the Knicks. Just some matchup issues. I don't know exactly who would guard Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown's really good on the wing. I think the Knicks could beat the Celtics, but I think that would be a tougher matchup for them. And obviously, there's some teams that you don't want to see. You don't want to see the Miami Heat. They swept the Knicks in the regular season. You don't want to see the Sixers, the Nets, the Bucks. Those are obviously teams with better records. But if they do, I think the Hawks or the Celtics, they certainly could beat in the playoffs. And I think that's something that Knicks fans honestly should look forward to. Because, like you said, if Bleacher Report says it, it must be true. There weren't a lot of expectations around this New York team going into the season, and they're playing great. Fans should feel great about that. I think they had a rough night last night against Phoenix. I watched a little bit of that game, but for the most part, they've had quite a few winning streaks. One long one a few weeks ago. Overall, again, this is just a huge win this year for the Knicks fans. And it feels good to say that because that's really not something you could ever say before now. Again, the Knicks should just keep in mind that there really is no pressure this year. Just go out and play and see what happens in the playoffs for sure.
The Knicks, to close out their season, they play the Clippers today at 3:30, and then they will play the Los Angeles Lakers as well, and then San Antonio, and then I think they come back home for 2 games set before the regular season concludes. But they'll have to, as we mentioned, they're going to most likely make a playoff spot, but they're still vying for where they'll be seated, and the teams they're playing, obviously the Clippers do have a playoff berth already, but they're going to want to stay where they are, and the Lakers dropped to the 7th seed. So on Tuesday when the Knicks play, it's pretty much not a desperation game for the Lakers, but pretty close to that because Los Angeles is a team that's still trying to figure it out, still trying to stay healthy, and they do not need a play-in game to figure that out. They need a playoff series. So the Knicks are going to get the best shot from teams in these last 5 games, and they need to come out with a winning record again if they want to win a postseason series. But Dan, you mentioned it. In terms of the expectation, this is, again, a growth year. As much as Knicks fans don't want to hear it, if they don't win a playoff series this year, it'll be disappointing, of course, and you could feel that, but it shouldn't ruin your week or ruin your whole month, or you turn off the NBA playoffs for the rest of the time. The Knicks weren't supposed to do this year. As I mentioned, you added 2 rookies. That's it. The same team. You added, back Taj Gibson, and obviously Nerlens Noel was a very underrated offseason signing. But the core of the Knicks was the core of the Knicks last year, and they're playing way above their expectations. Julius Randle won't win MVP, but is having an MVP-type season. Definitely top 10, regardless who you root for and what you think in terms of playing ability this year and in terms of just stats, points, rebounds, and assists. He's had an amazing season. RJ Barrett's developing like the guy that they drafted very early on. Overall, you should be happy about this team. And we opened the segment and opened the show with the New York Rangers, obviously. And while we, knocked on them and obviously are disappointed, Brennan and I, as Ranger fans, of how this season has gone, this past decade, we've seen some great moments that are going to make, why we're going to stick with the Rangers until they figure stuff out, because they have given us great, memories. That's where we're entering with the Knicks. That's what you should feel hopeful about, because the last decade, besides maybe 2012, 2013, has been terrible. Has been a team that you just look at and are considered a laughing stock in the league, bottom of the league. This year, even though Brooklyn may take a little shine away as we go deeper into the postseason, the basketball world in New York and the media capital of the world has revolved around the New York Knicks. And that's something that's not usually said, but is said this year. And, again, and you look at this roster, they could use a star in terms of they could get one with money, and they have an opening for it, and it's already a really good team. You add a big piece to this roster, and you have realistic expectations, not obviously next year, but the years going on, that this could be a team that contends for a championship down the line. It's crazy to think, especially after last season, but that's the realistic place that the Knicks are if they continue to develop the way they are. And no matter what, because you could put players aside for a moment, even though I think the NBA is the most player-driven league in terms of whether you win or lose is dependent on talent and skill level that you have at your positions. Coach Tom Thibodeau is the guy. The Knicks have finally found that coach. We thought it was Fizdale to recruit players. We thought it was Mike Woodson. I liked him a lot, but he just wasn't the guy. D'Antoni was probably ahead of his time with the Knicks. Fisher was terrible. But this is the guy. Tibbs is the guy, people. And that's what we should be happy about. And obviously, Dan giving some analysis, too, of how the East is. And Dan, a Celtics fan, but, and knows that they've underwhelmed this season, but probably won't come postseason time. Bren, you have anything to add on the basketball front?
Nope.
Awesome. Just wanted to throw that out. Last opportunity.
Guys, that's an award-winning segment right there.
You think so?
Yeah, I think just because I didn't talk.
Wow.
Oh, self-burn.
Self-burn. It's usually award-winning when we're in studio because I'm the furthest away from the camera. There's my self-dig. Dan, you got one?
Here we go.
I'm just too hot.
I forgot Derek Fisher was the coach of the Knicks. Wow, I didn't even remember that.
Yeah. I'll probably forget a relative's birthday going forward, but I'll always remember Derek Fisher was the coach of the Knicks, unfortunately. So there you go. I think that's a great way to close this segment. We've talked hockey, we've talked basketball, but coming up we'll talk about baseball, and we won't give, maybe we will, but we won't go too deep into the Yankees and the Mets. They're turning things around, and we're not going to, go too in-depth about that. But this first month has showed a trend in baseball that may help it or may hurt it going forward this season and for seasons to come. So we'll talk about that and more. You are watching or listening to the MVP Show on YouTube and VIC Radio.
Hey besties, if you love VIC Radio as much as we do, you want to know what's going on in the studio, or you want to stay in the VIC loop, why not follow us on our Twitter at VIC Radio and our Instagram, which is also at VIC Radio. Keep listening to the best of What's Next, your favorite indie music station.
Up next on VIC, noon to 1, it's the place to be. Talking sports with the MVPs, that's Miller, Vicari, and Passante. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, whatever you need. The MVP Show where you need to be. Sports radio on VIC, that's MVP. Sundays on VIC, that's MVP. Sports Talk Radio, VIC.
Welcome back to the MVP Show here on VIC Radio and on YouTube. Make sure to follow us at the MVP Show on Twitter. We're also on TikTok. MVP Show is probably the account you could find. I don't think there's a lot of TikToks named after that. And there's not really an official @ with TikTok, so that confuses me a little. So just type in MVP Show there, even though I think most of our audience are like, what? What the hell is TikTok? Yeah, absolutely. So we, again, we're on all social media platforms, and thank you again for watching and listening this whole semester as well as today, last show of the semester. We talked basketball, we talked hockey, and we're going to talk about a trend in baseball, Brennan, and you're pretty excited about it. Maybe I'll throw a little pushback your way, but this first month of baseball in April and so far in early May has seen a lot of no-hitters.
Yeah, where there have been 4 confirmed no-hitters, especially, and maybe 5 if we're counting Madison Bumgarner's 7-inning no-hitter. But personally, I don't, just because, J Happ went the same distance, 7 innings, just the night before Bumgarner threw his no-hitter, and he doesn't get credited for anything. So I'm going to say that there are 4. Regardless, the record for most no-hitters in a season is 7 in the modern era. And there was one season in 1884 where they threw 8 no-hitters, but at that point they were still using spitballs and screwballs. So I don't think that really that plays in. So 7 is the number to catch up to here. It's happened 3 times. It happened 1990, 1991, and 2012. The game has never been more conducive to throwing no-hitters. The pitchers are getting much better. The batters are swinging for the fences at all times, regardless of situation, and striking out a lot more. The batting average to start off this season is the lowest in the history of the MLB. The average batting average is .234, which is just barely above the Mendoza line. And if I had a batter who was hitting .234 on the roster, I'd be taking a look at him as far as sitting him on the bench, because I would assume that there's guys who can hit higher than that, who would play his position. When you take a look at everything that's gone on this year, I mean, we've had no-hitters from guys that we really, really don't expect. I mean, Wade Miley threw a no-hitter just this weekend. John Means is a guy that, while he has been very, very good at the beginning of this year, he still plays in the Orioles. And he faced the minimum amount of batters, though, which is awesome. And he actually got all of them out, because the one batter that got on a drop third strike, and then was immediately thrown out trying to steal second. So Means still faced a minimum number and got more outs than he actually needed to. As far as the other guys, I actually completely forgot who else threw no-hitters.
What was it? Rodon, right, in Chicago?
Yes, Rodon started it off. Or no, he did not start it. Rodon had the second one of the year. And the first one was a Padres pitcher. I forget who.
Okay. What, Musgrove?
Yes, Joe Musgrove.
Yes.
You're correct. But the game has literally never been more conducive. And I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. I think that when you take a look at everything that goes on in the league, I am a big fan of 3 true outcomes, which is walk, home run, or strikeout, which are the only real things that kind of matter in baseball. I'm not going to be having anyone hit and run or anything like that, or steal bases, because it just isn't conducive to putting runs on the board. I'm a big fan of Joey Gallo, I guess is what I'm saying. But I actually love the way the game is going. I will say, John, I know you're about to come on here and defend the ability to slap a single the other way. But I will say that every single time that a pitcher has been within 2 outs or within 2 innings, of throwing a no-hitter, every single person that lives in our apartment has gone to their phone, has pulled it up, and is watching because they know that that's history. And when you have people doing that, that's exciting. The more eyes that you can get on any particular game, which at this point it could be any particular game because we've had the Orioles, the Reds, the Padres, and the White Sox throw no-hitters, and the Diamondbacks if you're going to count Bumgarners. If you can get eyes on the East Coast on those games that are taking place for the majority of them late at night, that's just good for the brand, and that's just good for baseball.
It's funny because I was about to start DJ LeMahieu, but you bit me into it, so I got to recalibrate. Look, in terms of this, I think right now it's a good thing. Brennan, as you mentioned, you get the no-hitter notification on your phone if you're not, obviously, because you're not going to be invested if you live, where we do in New York, maybe the Yankee game, maybe the Met game, but you get that notification that, oh, look, this guy, Wade Miley's throwing a no-hitter. Let's get the game up on the TV, find it somewhere, and put it on and let's watch, where you wouldn't do that if there was no hitter being thrown. It wouldn't matter, even if it's a close game, unless you get that notification or that Twitter, someone tweeting about it, you wouldn't get that. My concern is that the no-hitters, because it's been bountiful this season, it's helping audience, as you mentioned, Brennan. The problem is they're not happening every day in terms, or it does seem like that, but it won't sustain itself. And the lack of offense overall is still hurting the game. I know what you're saying, where people are invested in these no-hitters. People don't enjoy, I don't know, maybe younger people do, and I think, Brennan, you should be glad you're a Yankee fan because they live by the 3 true outcomes. People want to watch action, regardless of how that is, and maybe the mind has to be changed a little for the viewer, and especially developed in younger kids that, there's always action in baseball. The pitcher shaking off a signal from the catcher is action. But compared to the other sports, it doesn't seem like that. When every possession there's, a made basket or a dunk. In football, there's a massive hit. And in hockey, there's Tom Wilson. But in terms of, baseball, it's what this action is quantified as and whether people are enjoying it or not. Do people enjoy, because obviously they enjoy no-hitters, do they enjoy 1-0 pitchers duels? Brennan, I know you do. I don't know if baseball... people, I think old people do as well, and older baseball fans do. I don't know if young people do. And when you go up and I think it's 2 extremes. I think that you have these games. You have these games like you mentioned that are 1-0, 2-1 pitchers duels at Jacob deGrom. But then you also have games like we saw yesterday where the Yankees just got blown out, and it was because the Nationals were hitting the ball really, really well because they were willing to swing at whatever was coming their way. It's definitely 2 extremes, but I think you have to keep in mind that there's still more home runs being hit than ever in the game. And you said people don't want to watch, or people want to watch, good baseball. 2 other things that people want to watch: history, i.e. no-hitters, and long balls. Chicks dig the long ball, John. I'm aware. No, I'm not anti-home run. I'm just anti-swinging at 3 pitches just for the sake of swinging. I know you're going to laugh, and it's sort of one of the true outcomes. I care more about on base. That's how you get runs. Because guess what? DJ LeMahieu hit, and obviously we're recording this Saturday, DJ LeMahieu hit 2 home runs last night. The Yankees lost by 8 runs because they can't get people on. That was the problem. And Brendan, it's not even that I disagree. We just have to find this happy medium where teams aren't, you know what I mean? Because home run is the most important thing. Absolutely. It just can't come at the extent of all these strikeouts and all players going for the long ball. As much as I love Brett Gardner, as you know, Brett Gardner's job is to get on base by any means necessary. Whether that be a walk, whether that be a walk, a single, a double, a hit by pitch. Gardner's swing is designed to hit the ball out of the park. I don't know why. I know he has the power, and it's gone steadily increased throughout his MLB career if you look at Baseball Reference and his stats. But that's not who he is. It's just not. he is a guy who's going to get, and he's not a stolen base guy anymore. And as you mentioned in your open there, Bren, stolen bases are pretty much gone in baseball in terms of professional baseball where they don't matter anymore. But speed and base running IQ still does, and a guy like Gardner has to get on base. And we just, again, have to find the happy medium in terms of how the game is played. I love the fact that you want a launch angle swing, because if it's not a home run, it's probably like a line drive into the gap. Would you rather see than, as you mentioned, an opposite field single that barely bloops? But regardless, getting on base is the most important thing. And I'm hoping, again, because right now I think so far it's been a positive because the no-hitters have been thrown and there's been excitement. But hopefully going forward, it doesn't, people just watching these three true outcomes and their teams pretty much getting frustrated at their team, as probably Yankee fans were on Friday night watching the team and just how they were going about at-bats. Hopefully, again, that happy medium is found where the home run is still the most valued thing, but it doesn't hurt to get on base either.
And the happy medium is Giancarlo Stanton, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Because he hits the ball 120 miles per hour directly at somebody, and they don't have time to react.
Yes, absolutely. And that's all, again, hitting the ball hard. It doesn't have to leave the stadium or the diamond. It'd be great if it did, but if it's in the gap or even, down the line, that works too. That works too. So, again, and you're right. What was that?
We need more Stantons.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the Yankees would have 9 DHs. No. Sorry. Whoa. Sorry. Sorry. I love defense too. Even though I think maybe that makes me, more than an old man too. Oh, you like defense? But yes, I do. There you go. Yeah. And defense should be valued. But you don't have to play defense when everyone's striking out. 3 true outcomes.
Yeah, tell Fernando Tatis that.
Yeah, well, he's the best example. He's one of the faces of the league, and he made it at least in the first 13 games. He made 9 errors or something like that. It was Gotta love him though. Big. Now I'm a big fan of his game because of the way he plays. He always plays hard. That's a separate thing too, bro.
Hey, shortstop, John. Of course he's gonna play hard.
Yeah, you need people to run it out. Dan, do you want to jump in on this with anything, or am I just an old man, as I always am?
Well, it seems like we're looking for, either everyone needs to hit and hit a lot, or nobody needs to hit because we like no hitters, like literally 0 hits. So yeah, that's kind of tough for baseball. But it's really no secret to anybody that baseball doesn't really have a young audience, and if that home runs means they're going to get it, then I'm sure that's what they're going to keep aiming for. But I don't know. I like base hits too, personally, watching, but that's not exactly where the game's going. I can't say I have a problem with it, though. I definitely understand it. And I still think it's certainly entertaining enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to round out our discussion on this. And again, if you're watching on YouTube, throw comments in the chat. Obviously, this isn't, live per se. Obviously, it's a YouTube premiere, but we want to hear from you on Twitter at the MVP Show as well on all the things that we have discussed. And when we come back, we're going to do, for the last time this semester, maybe last time all time, our MVP of the week. Yeah, and Brennan, I know. It's the MVP of the week. Where are we going to go? Who knows? Find out after the break. Stay with us for the last about 20 minutes here on VIC Radio and on YouTube. You're watching or listening to the MVP Show.
VIC Radio is the voice of Ithaca College. Here's a campus organization you can get involved in.
Want to help bring a little more love to your campus community? IC Random Acts of Kindness Club meets every Monday from 8 to 9 p.m. in the Business School, room 104. Stop by to socialize, participate in fun events, get creative, and be kind. For more information, please email randomactsofkindnessic@gmail.com.
Want to get your organization's message on the air? Email community@vicradio.org to connect with the Campus Community Involvement Director.
Up next on VIC, noon to 1, it's the place to be. Talking sports with the MVPs, that's Miller, Vicari and Passante. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, whatever you need. The MVP Show where you need to be. Sports radio on VIC, that's MVP. Sundays on VIC. That's MVP Sports Talk Radio, VIC.
Welcome back to the MVP show here on VIC Radio and on YouTube, joined alongside by Brennan Miller and Dan Passante, and I'm John Vicari. It's quite a show. We've touched on, 3 of the 4 major sports, right? Everything besides football, a little basketball, a little hockey, a little baseball talk. But now we're going to our most highly rated segment. Maybe not. I don't look at the analytics that much. But it's the MVP of the week. It's someone this week that we thought had a great week. It could be in sports, news, entertainment, pop culture, what have you. Really doesn't matter, and it's fun where we get some of these answers, and we don't tell each other before the show where we're going to go. And that being said, Dan, you want to lead us off here for the last MVP of the week of the semester?
I just opened up Twitter to see if I had any last-minute MVPs, and I see that Catterday is trending. So one of my MVPs, Cats. Obviously, the MVP has to be us because we now have a framed certificate of all of our, of the show. So, I mean, that kind of goes without saying. We're definitely MVPs for that reason. But I think my other MVP this week has to be Jimmy Butler because he played the Timberwolves last night and he talks a lot of smack. And I know that that's not always a good thing, but in the NBA, it just makes things interesting to see like a real rivalry still taking place, which I don't even know if it's a rivalry. I mean, he just doesn't like Karl Anthony Towns, and they kind of know that, and then now they yell at each other when they play each other. And Jimmy Butler, he's just a different breed. He is so competitive, such a great athlete, really underrated. So Jimmy Butler, you are my final MVP of the semester.
Wow. Mine is also us because we, are absolute. I mean, at this point, we can say we're the best sports show on Ithaca College Radio. So does it get any better than that? I don't think so. I will throw another one out there, though. My MVP of the week is Arch Manning, the I believe nephew of both Eli. Of both Eli and Peyton Manning. He got his first 24/7 Sports Composite ranking, .9988. He's a 5-star prospect, the number 1 quarterback in the country. And the fact that there's just going to just constantly be a line of Mannings forever. Pretty much, that will be Hall of Fame, well, maybe Hall of Fame level quarterbacks.
That hurts.
It just gets me really excited because if they come out with 32 of them, there's already been 3 teams that have had a Manning on them. So I'm hoping that eventually one gets to the Packers.
Wow. Yeah, no, believe me, it's tough because I believe in Jones, but if Arch Manning falls to the Giants, regardless of how the future plays out, won't be that disappointed. Will not be that disappointed. And he's the son of the best Manning, by the way, Cooper, because, he's very entertaining on Fox's NFL coverage. And they all say it's great in interviews. And even everyone in the family, even the Manning mom there, I'm blanking on the name, but she was like, yeah, he was the best athlete, which is just hilarious because didn't even play in college. And they're like, yeah, he was the best one. It's like, Eli's got 2 Super Bowls. Peyton's like, tops and yards and touchdowns all the time. Well, no, Coop was the man. So, Arch Manning, interesting MVP. Did not think that's where we were going in May. I like the poll, Brennan. I do. And that's that.
But we talk a little bit of football today, right?
Absolutely. I like the poll. And the Packers definitely need a quarterback, right? Oh, zinger. Sorry, you called Eli Manning a fringe Hall of Famer. Why do you do that like everyone else in society? God.
It's fun to see that.
Ugh. Anyway, my MVP of the week is us. No. Yeah, sure, why not? Look, I this whole show, and it's pretty much my MVP of the week is not only this, but the sports department, IC radio-wise. It was fun overseeing it for the last 2 semesters. And obviously, this last show is not the way we would have wanted it to be over Zoom. I'm sure everyone who's watching now, even if they don't want to come out and say it, they're tired of looking at Zoom. Whether you're a student, a parent, whatever. And these times have been tough. It's still, raging on and obviously getting a whole lot better. All 3 of us are fully vaccinated and things are getting better. But the fact that we were in studio at all for this past semester has been, was great. And obviously you can look back at last week's show. That was our last in-studio show. And I think we knocked it out of the park. And obviously, believe me, we don't want to be doing the show in this capacity as well. We're literally all in the same house, but not around the table because this is the best aesthetic way to, make this show. It's unfortunate, but it's just the way of the world, and obviously things have been worse for a whole lot of other people. So, the MVP of the week pretty much is the fact that throughout this semester we've gotten to, do a show, and it's been fun, and we've had a little fun. We hope that, it's been fun for you watching and viewing, and I'm glad it was a possibility, as well as having Ithaca College sporting events that we've all taken part in, as well as, shows and certain things, and, Dan keeps winning awards left and right, and if we were back at our home, it wouldn't have happened. So, the fact that that's happening as well is huge, and, we're working through this, and I'm glad that, again, that we got to do a show this semester, because obviously, ideally, it would have been each week in studio, but, especially going back to the fall and the winter, and especially in the spring as well, the fact that, we're plugging along, I think we should commend ourselves, and we commend all of you for, following us throughout. When we come back, we'll pretty much do the same of what I just did, and look back at this, the past 2 semesters, talk about our summer plans, and, anything else that pops up in our minds here for the last 10 minutes of the MVP show. You're watching or listening on YouTube and on VIC Radio.
Hey besties, if you love VIC Radio as much as we do, you want to know what's going on in the studio, or you want to stay in the VIC loop, why not follow us on our Twitter at VIC Radio and our Instagram, which is also at VIC Radio. Keep listening to the best of What's Next, your favorite indie music station.
Up next on VIC, noon to 1, it's the place to be. Talking sports with the MVPs, that's Miller, Vicari, and Passante. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, whatever you need. The MVP show where you need to be. Sports radio on VIC, that's MVP. Sundays on VIC, that's MVP. Sports Talk Radio, VIC.
Welcome back to the MVP show here on YouTube and on VIC Radio for the last time in this spring 2021 semester. And in terms of our show's future, going to be one that you're going to have to follow on social media platforms. We're at the MVP show on Twitter and on TikTok as well. The MVP show for, in terms of social media, as well as our Twitters. It's at B Miller Mic'd Up. Is that? Yes, B Miller Mic'd Up. At Vicari John, at Danny the Manny P for personal updates as well. But obviously, we're going to try and give you some MVP show content this summer. Don't know how, that will work. It won't be obviously every Sunday, usually from noon to 1, because we're very busy people. And,
I think my plan is just to take the account and make us TikTok famous.
Yes, I think that's the. I
feel like that's the most efficient.
Yes, I think it is too, and doing like minute segments that we know are going to blow up. Yeah, I think that is too. In terms of time, because look, as we mentioned, we're going to be very busy. Dan, I want you to start, and we can go around, and again, is this us, shilling and plugging our own stuff? I guess, but it's what we're doing, and I think a great way to close out the show, rather than, I don't know, talking about some other sport. I don't know. But Dan, if you want to start us off here.
Well, this summer we'll be having a WICB podcast. We'll be doing This Week in Music, which recaps the week in music news. That should be fun. I've mentioned a few bands throughout the semester, the last 2 semesters, so it'll be fun to talk about that. And also I'll be working with Inner Circle Pictures, which is a few students who recently graduated. I'll be helping them make a few films, which you may or may not see someday at a streaming platform. Can't give too much away. But I will be helping with that. So that's kind of what I'm up to. But, if you still want to hear my voice, you should definitely go on Twitter and see what I got going on, because there's plenty of opportunities to hear me, spew hot air towards a microphone still. So this is definitely not the last time, for sure.
Absolutely. In terms of me, I'm going to Wisconsin this summer and calling Rapid Rafters baseball. 72 games. It's going to be a long haul. I'm so excited. I go in a couple weeks over there, and it's going to be fun just doing what I love, which is doing play-by-play, calling a lot of baseball games where probably I'll get sick of hearing my own voice. You would think these last 2 semesters that would have already happened, but it has not. Yeah, well, no, yeah, the audiences do, but I'm still comfortable with it. But that is my plans. Hopefully, Dan, that you get to stay on my stay in my room when you're working with the production company, because obviously they're going to do some things in the city, and I won't be home to sleep in my bed. So hopefully someone will use it, because I don't know. My parents paid for it. I don't know. So someone's got to use it. And of course, Brennan, that offer's always extended to you if you're in the city this summer at all. But if you want to go through your summer plans and, post-graduation, Brennan is such a great young... This is how I think your resume, it should say Brennan Miller, obviously the address, whatever, and then say rising young talent, because that's what Brennan Miller is. I mean, look at his hair today, people. Some would call that, like... Oh, it's in his face. He doesn't care. It's styled like that. This man, I found out yesterday, cuts his own hair. That's insane.
I did 2 days ago, yeah.
Because if it looked terrible, okay, that's a realistic... Okay, yeah, he cuts his own hair. It doesn't. It looks phenomenal.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to barber school this summer. No, I will be the director of communications for the show Silver Smiths baseball team in the NYCBL. We're the biggest thing that we're doing. We're just trying to make things as cool as possible. We have a media day scheduled already. We are trying to set up our video stream, which we've never done before. I get to stay home, which is awesome for me. The less money that I have to pay over a general period of time, the better. So I get to stay close to home. I get to work with a baseball team that I have worked with for, obviously not last year, but 2 years prior to that. Just kind of moving up the ladder, and I am very, very excited to get that started.
Awesome.
But yeah, barber school maybe in the near future.
That would be great. That would be something. In terms of our summer plans, I got distracted by a long text that now I got to read, but not on air, obviously. But Brennan, I'm so proud. I'm so proud of what we've done the last pretty much 2 semesters overall. I believe we put a good product out there, and again, it has been something. But those are our summer plans. And in terms, I don't want to go too long on this. Obviously, I've sort of just made jokes about it. In terms of programming for this show, again, it's going to be mainly on social media. That's where you'd find updates. And we appreciate if you give us a follow, again, at the MVP Show on Twitter and on TikTok, MVP Show as well. And follow us 3 on the accounts, which we've already listed. We're not going to keep going with that. But, that's just keeping up with us. And it's been a thrill. I talked about it on the MVP Show, the MVP of the week, I should say. But it's been a thrill doing the show for, pretty much 2 years in terms of you go back, or maybe even 3 if you go back with Nick and obviously us. We've been part of a show and now doing this one as well. It's been fun. It's we do a lot, and sometimes we'll be honest, even today we were just like, oh geez, we got a lot of time to fill, and not a lot's going on in terms of what we're passionate about, and we get very busy at times, but we love doing this. We really do, and I hope everyone watching and listening appreciate it as well. Don't want to get emotional like last week, but that's what I'm on the verge of. But in terms of last things, if we want to go around, last things you want to say. If not, we'll close up shop for the semester.
I think it's just funny that Dan has come full circle and is now doing a podcast, because that is how we all met.
Yeah.
Was at I think it was the Ithacan podcast meeting, is where Nick was recruiting people to be on his show. So the fact that everything has kind of come full circle is pretty funny to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, ironic for sure. Yeah, and I mean, who knows? Maybe in a few years we'll end up as multimedia journalists in Upper Lake Michigan too. You never know how things go. But that was our friend Nick, who was on the show at first. Yeah, I mean, it's been fun. It's definitely, this is not the end for sure. We'll be back and we'll still be doing things. So I guess it's the end for this semester, but all think good things must come to an end. So we will certainly be back and continue to put out some sports content. Continue to be talking into your Zoom square. Hopefully in person. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, no, this is certainly a goodbye for now. A see you later type of thing.
Absolutely. And again, it's been a semester. It's been a semester, all the challenges, but we've overcome them. We're award-winning, which two-time award-winning show, and I think that's the best place to close it out, from being humble the last 10 minutes to being braggadocious. But yeah, there's not much we could ramble on about going forward. So for Brennan Miller and Dan Passante, I'm John Vicari. Thank you for this whole semester watching and listening to the MVP show. Follow the Herd is next on VIC.